Hey everybody, how's it going? I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about the victim game and how not to be a victim and why you shouldn't be a victim. Well, a lot of people, especially in the political world, one of the things that really irritates me in the political world is there's a certain party that tends to make a living off of preaching the victim mentality. And first of all, that creates victims. It creates people that are weak-minded, who believe that they're weak. Let me explain something to you. You don't need to be a victim. It's not good to be a victim. And when you're a victim, that means somebody else is in charge of you. Politically, we know why a certain party does this. They do it because they want to insert in people's brains that they're a victim, therefore needing their help. And they're a victim because of their race, their sex, or sexuality, etc., etc., etc. Well, let me explain something to you. It is not empowering for you to believe you're a victim. Nobody that you don't know, if you don't know somebody, nothing they should say should offend you. Why would somebody that you don't know offend you? That's you giving them power that you don't need to give them. You need to think of yourself as you and understand that nobody on this earth has a right to hurt you, to put you down, to do anything towards you that harms you. And you're the one that can stop that from happening. You. When it comes to self-defense, I say it all the time. You and you alone are the first line of defense for you and your family. Not the government, not the police. And I love the police, but they're not there. You don't have a cop that follows you around 24/7. It's you. Okay? And don't let people... There's nothing in this world you can't accomplish unless people get to your head and convince you that you're a victim. In this country that we live in, there are people of every race, every sexuality, every sex, every skin color, everything you can think of that are very rich and successful. And there's people equally that are not rich and successful and not happy and not where they want to be in life. Your race, first of all, let me erase that word race because I don't believe in it. Because God tells us, nature tells us, science has proven to us. We know through DNA, we know all this stuff, there's only one race, the human race. We're all the same. The pigment of your skin has nothing to do with who you are and what you could accomplish. Okay? So don't let politicians and self-serving people tell you that you need their help because somebody else doesn't like you. Okay? That's bull. Okay? There is nothing empowering about being a victim. Empower yourself by being strong. Empower yourself by believing in yourself. And this is where we're going to get into confidence. What is confidence? Confidence isn't someone telling you, here, you have a black belt. I can tell you this from firsthand experience because most people with black belts can't fight. Confidence comes only when it comes from you. So when you really are a black belt, you have confidence. What I mean by that is when you have trained for 5 to 10 years and you've sparred thousands of times and you really have applied yourself in a martial art, the confidence will be inside of you because it's real. Okay? That's called true confidence. It's not because somebody told you something. It's not because somebody gave you something. It's because it's real. Okay? That applies to everything in your life. You have to make it real. That's what true confidence comes from. Reality. Functional reality, which means do the right thing the right way. That's what gives you confidence. As a martial artist, I have confidence because a combination of I've been getting in fights since I was 3 years old, and I've trained with the best people in the world. I've got the best, Dan Inosanto, Paul Vunek signature on a paper saying that I can teach. I've been in so many situations. That's where I have confidence because it's reality. It's not based on my ego telling me, oh, you can do this because of this or that or another. It's based on reality. So true confidence comes from being real. Okay, when you have a relationship and you talk about being happy in your relationship, having confidence in your significant other, your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, girlfriend, that confidence comes from reality. It comes from you knowing that they love you and you love them, and that's true confidence. That's true love. It's not something fabricated in your head. So when you have somebody, a group of people telling you that you need their help in order to accomplish something, don't pay attention to them. Nobody but yourself can change who you are. Okay? I have a lot of people ask me a lot about how do I get confidence, having one arm and all this stuff. And it's like, well, that's easy. I can tell you right up. Like, how do you think I feel when, I lost my arm when I was 20 years old, getting in fights and beating people with two hands and going to martial arts training seminars and sparring with guys and beating them and all that stuff. That gives me confidence. It's not, I don't just sit home in my cave and sit here and go, gee, Mike, you're such a badass. And oh my, because that's what a lot of guys do. I have ran into quite a bit of these people in my life. So confidence comes from reality. Reality. I don't care what you do in life. If you're a computer person and you work on computers all day long, why do you have confidence in your ability to work on computers? Because you do it for real. It's real because you've spent the time doing it. That's what true confidence comes from. Going back to relationships. Well, how do you know you're in a relationship? Well, confidence comes from the actual doing of the relationship. How do you treat each other? Things that are said and done in a relationship. The things that, happen in the relationship. That's what gives you the confidence. It's real. Okay? When people don't have a good relationship, it's because it's not based on reality. They're usually lying to each other. They're not telling each other who they are really. They're hiding things from each other, or one person's hiding, all of these things. What it comes down to, no matter what it is, your work, your personal life, martial arts, anything that you're doing, confidence comes from reality. Okay, why does an MMA fighter have confidence? Why? Because he's in the gym all day long getting punched and punching and kicking and lifting weights and training and running and grappling and boxing. And that's where the confidence comes from. It's real. That's why. Why do you think in the beginning of the UFC, when the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys were just beating everybody, why was that? Because most of the martial artists were full of themselves. They didn't spar. They didn't train to fight a grappler. They didn't. Their belief system and their skill was based not on reality but on their ego. You see, your ego gets in the way of a lot of stuff. Let me explain to you what I mean, because we all have egos. You're going to hear, in the martial art world, believe me, there's a lot of ego. You can't be a Sifu, a sensei, an instructor, and not have, a lot of confidence in yourself. So there's a lot of egos. But the difference is that you have to check your ego. You have to control your ego and understand your ego is going to tell you things that aren't true in order to pamper itself, to pat itself in the back. We see this again going back to the political world, where you show people facts about statistics and facts in history, and you show them things and that's not true. And the reason why they think it's not true isn't because it's not true, it's because the truth doesn't pamper their egos. I get this a lot in the martial art world too. When I talk to people, I've had so many people come to me over the years who had backgrounds in traditional martial arts. And let me stop, boom, 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 and say, I don't believe there's a bad martial art on the earth. There's just bad martial artists. So it's not that, I'm against traditional martial arts, but the truth of the matter is a lot of people who train in traditional martial arts don't spar, don't have an instructor that sparred. And what happens is their confidence that they have from that martial art is not based on reality. Okay? And it's like, it's like the world doesn't care about what you think. Another example would be, and a lot of people might have seen this movie Wild Hogs, where you have a group of men who all of a sudden bought bikes and motorcycles and started being like bikers. And it's like, and then in the movie, the reality is you're not a biker, and that's what it comes down to. You can't just pretend, and you can't let your ego determine things. One of the biggest things that, in my opinion, that stops people from accomplishing things is their egos are in charge of them. And what I mean by that is, I can give you many examples in my life personally in the martial art world. I like to talk about martial arts a lot because I spent 40 years training and teaching martial arts. So it's like, and there's so much in life involved in that. There were plenty of instructors that I've trained with that I found out that I made a bad choice in that instructor. And now my ego, if I wasn't in charge of my ego, I would not admit that. And what I mean by that is there's so many people that I see, when they come to me and they ask me advice about, they say, I've trained this and I've done this and this and that. And they don't understand that because they can't tell themselves that they made a mistake because their ego won't let them do it. And what I mean by that is you have to understand that everybody makes mistakes and makes bad decisions. Your ego is what stops you from recognizing that. Okay? And that in turn stops you from having true confidence, because you're better off and you have much more confidence if you admit of something you can't do than let your ego fool you into thinking that you can. And believe me, you can ask anybody who knows me, it's happened to me multiple times where people have confronted me with a false confidence in who they were because their ego let them believe that they were something that they weren't. Our military guys see this all the time. We got terrorists, they terrorize people and innocent people and civilians and women and children and people without weapons and so forth and so forth. But they don't do very good against trained military guys, do they? So it's like your ego allows you to believe that you're something that you're not all the time. So that is something you got to get rid of right away. Just, kick your ego in the butt, get rid of it, control it. Okay? That's one of the steps to getting true confidence. The other step is make it real. Make it real. I don't care what it is, if it's martial arts, your work, your love life, it doesn't matter. Make it real. Okay? So many times people want to do what's comfortable. And the problem with that is what's comfortable isn't always right. And when you don't do things the right way, every single time you do something that's not done the right way, it takes a little bit of your confidence away from you. Because confidence knows the truth. You can fool other people. You could even fool yourself. But deep down inside, the truth always prevails. This is why it's so important for you to grow as a person. So when to obtain true confidence, you've got to be willing to grow as a person. You've got to be willing to work on the things that you don't do well, make better the things that you do well, accept the things you can't do, and make everything you do based on reality. Okay, that's what you have to do. So don't, pat yourself on the back and tell you something that's not true. You're better off telling yourself, I'm very hard on myself when it comes to training. I don't just go, oh yeah, that box, it's got to be perfect. And the reason why I push myself is because I know that when I get it perfect, it's the way it's supposed to be, which gives me confidence. I talk to my students a lot about training with and the imperfection of combat. And what I mean by that, I always go to a story. I talk about Michael Jordan, which is another thing that's going to age me. So when you watch Michael Jordan play, he's making all these, he's falling back and he's fading back and he's making all these baskets, and I guarantee you that when he's practicing, he's sitting there and he's taking that same shot from sitting still. It's the same thing as a martial artist. When you practice your jabs and your kicks and your trapping and stuff like that, you do it as perfectly as you can. But in a sparring situation, you're not going to do it perfect. You can't, because you have someone coming at you. So the best way for you to accomplish that is to have this true confidence in your ability and your technique, which comes from really doing it. Because life's not perfect. Confidence doesn't come from being perfect. Confidence comes from reality. And this is the main theme of this video, is that confidence comes from reality. It's like, why was Mike, did anyone ever remember Mike Tyson? Remember when he was 19, 20 years old, knocking guys out in 15 seconds? Why do you think he was so confident? It's because he was knocking guys out. He was knocking professional fighters out. Boom, boom, boom. Over and over and over and over again. That's real. That's not him sitting around with a bunch of his friends going, "You're bad, dude. You're bad. Yeah, you're bad, dude. Yeah." Because see, I've witnessed that. I've gotten in a lot of fights when I was younger with guys because you have groups of people, and in every group of people, there's always the good fighter, the tough guy, the whatever. And in my group of people, I was that guy. Now the difference is that my tough guy stuff was backed up with a combination of my crazy head and me growing up getting fights and the fact that I trained in martial arts since I was 11 years old, and trained daily for hours. So my confidence was based on reality. And we would, when I was younger, we'd go out and we'd get in confrontations with somebody at a party or at other schools and so forth, a lot of kids do in my stupid younger days. But so I would run into people, and there was always the tough guy in that group. Well, most of the time, that tough guy in that group wasn't at the level where I was, because he didn't go to martial arts and wrestling and lift weights and do that every single day of his life since he was 11 years old. He just was in a group of people, and they all, he's this and that, he's beating us and this and that. That's not true confidence. That's you and your ego telling you that you're something that you're not. Okay? Now, it's like that in everything. Every single thing in the world, it comes down to reality. Why is Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, great guitarist? It's because they practice and it's real. They didn't just sit at home and pretend. Everybody who excels at anything, it's because it's real. I guarantee you, each and every single one of you can think of examples of this right now. If you sat there, you could sit there and think of examples of your own self and other people. I guarantee somebody who thinks they're better than they are at something. Whether, I'm using martial arts and fighting, but it could be anything. Gaming, working on cars. I've had that my whole life too. We all have to understand something. Why is reality important? Because what reality means. And why is confidence important? Confidence means nothing if it's not based on reality. It means nothing. The reason why confidence is important, because confidence really is you believing in yourself. That's what confidence is. And you can't believe in something that's not true. That makes you an idiot. It really does. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean that in a sincere way. Look at yourself and believe in yourself, but base it on reality. Base everything you do on reality. Everything. And if something isn't the way you want it to be, change it. But change it with reality. And that will give you confidence. Everything that you base yourself on, every time you base what you're doing on reality, that gives you confidence. So remember, believe in yourself, make it real. Reality is the key to true confidence.